Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the final press conference of the OSCE Ministerial Council here in Łódź, Poland. We will start with opening remarks from Minister Rao, Minister Osmani, and Secretary General Schmid, and then open up for questions. This press conference will be held in English. There will be a section in Polish at the very end for Polish-speaking media. With that short introduction, I would like to invite Minister Rao to provide his opening remarks. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So now it's time to sum up the output of the organization after the Polish chairmanship, which is coming to the close. As you certainly know, this has been the most difficult year in the history of the organization. And the reason for the state of affairs is very well known. Our organization was established in order to ensure peace and cooperation among participating states. So the very condition of its proper functioning is peace. Peace implies the rejection of solving disputes, problems and conflicts by using force. So in other words, the organization was designed in the way in which it could function, provided that all participating states act in goodwill in order to preserve its core values. And this, the most basic idea of the functioning of the organization, was violated by the very fact of the Russian aggression against Ukraine. One participating state used force against another participating state. And this is the reason why sticking to the principes and commitments on which the organization has been based, we had to limit its previous activities, or better to say, we had to turn to extraordinary measures, including the instruments which were at our disposal but did not require consensus. Our organization is based upon consensus. We have found, as you know, the ways to keep the organization going, but the instruments have only a temporary character. And this brings us to the point which, whether we want it or not, is leading to starting a discussion. What's the future of the organization? Can it go on following its principles and commitments without this consensus? The answer is no. Consensus is the operational foundation of the organization. So understand why right now we have a beginning of an exchange of ideas in the public sphere, in the OSCE or more often beyond, how to reform the organization and how to ensure its continuity without reforming it. And these are all open questions. As I indicated in my closure remarks, I personally do believe that there is no alternative to sticking to its principles and defending their commitments. But this brings us to the situation from which it's very difficult to envision a harmonious and predictable functioning of an organization, provided that it's including all participating states. But my personal position and the position of Polish chairmanship in office is that, and my strong impression is that this is position shared by the overwhelming majority of the participating states, that there is no feasible alternative to it. First of all, we have to stick, I believe, to the principles and commitments. Then we have to defend the institutions which are based on these principles. And finally, we have to look for the solutions that will make it possible to keep the organization going. Is it an easy situation? Certainly it's not. Extremely challenging, extremely unpredictable. But think about the alternative. I don't see any. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Rao. I would now like to ask Minister Osmani to deliver his opening remarks. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm glad to be in Łódź today, attending this important meeting, taking place in the midst of extremely difficult times for the stability and the security in Europe and beyond. I would like to thank Minister Rao for organizing this year's OSCE Ministerial Council. My appreciation also goes to the Polish chairmanship, its able team, and OSCE Secretary General for putting up significant efforts to steer up the organization in an era marked by an open war of one participating state against another, unparalleled volatility and tensions on a global scale. The Russian war of aggression against Ukraine has a harsh impact over Europe's human and overall security. It undermined the OSCE's foundations, its acquis, and inevitably stalled its processes. However, the OSCE demonstrated resilience against the complex environment it operates in. As we enter the ninth month of the aggression now, the situation on the ground and across political capitals showed that our organization is needed more than ever. Our discussion yesterday reaffirmed this. We have heard many voices in support of OSCE's relevance, purpose, and existence. We have also heard calls for empowerment, political backing, and other relevant support to enable its functioning. And I join and echo those voices and plan to amplify them during our chairpersonship. The world needs a functional, cooperative security organization, and we should all work to empower the OSCE. The weight of today's situation makes us all responsible to act, not to sit, wait, but prepare. As I stated in our meeting, I have nothing but trust in the important work of the field missions and autonomous institutions, tasked with important mandates to foster our concept of comprehensive security. This organization has done so many good across the OSCE space. And in Ukraine, it could do even more, and it will do so once the war is over, which is an utmost priority. Idleness is not an option. We need to find ways to preserve and empower the OSCE, allowing its mechanisms that require space to continue making a difference. Thus, if we are united and serious around its existence and relevance, it is our duty to keep it befitting and functional, the way it provides a key as a bedrock for the European cooperative security and a platform for dialogue as a conflict prevention and resolution tool. This is our vision for North Macedonia's 2023 chairpersonship. North Macedonia stands ready to assume its share of the responsibility, being entrusted to serve as a chair of this organization. Chairing the OSCE predisposes leadership, and we will make sure to explore every avenue that leads to consensus and embrace every positive opportunity down the road. However, allow me to again repeat myself. The solutions and progress depend on all of us, and I would like to use this opportunity to call all participating states to also take critical responsibility. Today's hard times require resoluteness and commitment. So let's act as responsible and accountable actors in finding solutions for the way forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minister Osmani. And I ask Secretary General Schmid to provide her opening remarks. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And I would like to start by thanking Minister Rao for hosting us in his hometown in Łódź for a very important set of discussions. And let me also say, Minister, I'm particularly grateful to you for the close and trustful relationship we have enjoyed throughout the year, including through our joint visit to Kiev in August. This year has been marked by conflict, the return of violent warfare in the midst of Europe. And as you have just heard from the ministers, the two ministers, war against Ukraine was, of course, on the top of the OSCE's agenda throughout 2022. We have had a very substantial set of discussions over the past 2 days. But let me say also as Secretary General, what I take away from this Ministerial Council, I consider very successful, is not only a profound commitment, overwhelmingly profound commitment to support Ukraine, but also a profound, overwhelmingly profound commitment to the principles on which the OSCE was founded. I agree with you, Minister. And I think you rightly said that Helsinki, the principles remain the light that shines in the darkness. But let me also say in my capacity as Secretary General, I also heard the tremendous appreciation ministers have for the OSCE staff, whether in the Secretariat, the work the institutions do, our field missions, they are all doing excellent work in very difficult circumstances. And I also heard, and Minister Osmani just said it, from many ministers how crucial the work of the OSCE is, and also the recognition that we are not paralyzed by the current circumstances. As we look back at this year, we see, of course, the devastation the war has brought, but we also see how the OSCE has delivered to alleviate the challenges posed by this war in support of Ukraine in the first place, but also for Moldova, for Central Asia, Southeastern Europe, and well beyond, because this war has a devastating impact on all the neighboring countries as well. Let me say, and this is very personal for me, this year we had to evacuate our international staff from Ukraine. It was a heartbreaking move. I had hoped at the time it would be temporary. We helped as many of our, we evacuated all our international staff, and we helped as many of our national staff as possible to move to safer areas, even if evacuation wasn't always possible due to martial law. Later in April, several of our national mission members in Donetsk and Luhansk were unlawfully detained. I'm grateful that our efforts to release some of them were successful, but 3 of them remain in detention. They have been held now illegally for more than 8 months, despite our every effort to secure their release, and efforts that will continue, and this also will remain a top priority for me. We also had to close our 2 missions in Ukraine, the special monitoring mission and the project coordinator in Ukraine, because the Russian Federation could not agree to the consensus on their extension. But, and this was already mentioned also, let me just also underline it, the Ukraine has done so important work for more than 30 years in Ukraine, and this is why many countries just could not agree to stopping that, and this is why a wholly donor-funded new support program in Ukraine has been set up. I was in touch only this morning with the special representative who is in Kiev. The team in Kiev is back with nearly 60 people now, and they will be delivering on issues, very crucial issues such as humanitarian demining, addressing the environmental impacts of this war, which are huge, but also combating human trafficking and so much more. The impacts of this war are severe elsewhere, Moldova in particular, where the strikes on Ukraine have knocked out power supplies. And this is why our tailored approach to Moldova continues. And let me also say we're the only organization that is supporting the security dialogue and that is doing the monitoring in the security zone, as crucial as ever. I will not give you the full list, just to say in Central Asia, the work we're doing on connectivity, border security, women's economic empowerment is delivering, or in South Caucasus, where we're supporting, for example, the regional efforts to manage wildfires, the work we do also on regional cooperation on climate change in Southeastern Europe. We're helping participating states to cope with illicit small arms and light weapons, combat corruption, enhancing cybersecurity, improve border management, and big focus is always also to engage young people in security. We had also 2 very important side events here. One was on human trafficking, which has become which is one of really the most heinous human rights violations, with almost 27 million victims per year, and of course has been increased also as a consequence of Russia's war against Ukraine, because many of the refugees are women and children. We are leading as international organization in combating that, and we had a side event on climate change and its impact on mountains. In conclusion, just to say, and here I join Minister Osmani, throughout our meetings over the last 2 days, while of course acknowledging the depth of the challenges that we all face, not least of course the ongoing war of aggression against Ukraine, I heard from so many that the multilateral platform, the OSCE, is, with all relevant stakeholders at the table for European and Eurasian security, is unique and remains vitally important, including for the challenges ahead. So in this vein, I look very much forward to working with Minister Osmani, his ambassador, and colleagues from North Macedonia as you take on your chairpersonship in January. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Secretary General Schmid. With that, we're now open to take questions. And please, we have 2 runners here on each side, so please wait for the microphone to come. And then when you get the question, please state your name and the media outlet you represent, and also to whom you would like to ask the question. So, Lukas, in front here.
For this opportunity. So my name is Doriana Stepanenko. I am a correspondent of Radio Free Europe's Ukrainian service, and I would like to ask you about a special tribunal, because we heard from High Representative who brought here the plan of European Commission, which is so much in favor of creating this special tribunal. As far as I imagine, this idea was on the table, you discussed it, so I'd like to hear and ask you to share your comments about this idea. Would it fly, and how it can be established, and what are the odds generally that it would happen? And this is my first question, and if I may, I have also the second question, especially to Minister Osmani. What is the chance that rule of consensus will be changed, or I would go even for more broad decision? For example, we heard from Minister Kuleba that he insisted on taking out Russia from OSCE organization. So would it be possible that it will happen, or it will never happen? Thank you.
As far as the tribunal you are talking about is concerned, so it's absolutely obvious that the crimes, when they are committed, they have to be punished, and those who committed them should be taken to justice. Of course, there are institutional issues here which the overwhelming majority of the international community is determined to overcome, and I can say that there is a consensus concerning the demand for the most basic principles of justice. So, as you certainly know, they have been launched initiatives and indeed even some procedures how to prepare this kind of tribunal. And I'm ready to assure you that the overwhelming part of the participating states in the OSCE are in favor of this establishing of this kind of institution, and many of them are participating right now in collecting evidence, offering the legal help of, for example, public prosecutors to the Ukrainians, where most of this evidence is being collected. So I'm really optimistic about the final outcome of this endeavor, but in order to launch this kind of tribunal, as you know about the various institutional projects here, a consensus of the overwhelming majority of the international community is necessary, but there is no doubt in my mind that the legal solutions are going to be found, because after this kind of atrocities committed in front of the very eyes of the international public opinion, I'm absolutely sure that this demand for justice will continue and will prevail, and it will turn out to be successful. Thank you.
Yeah. Let me first compliment what Zbigniew says. In my national capacity as a foreign minister, my position, I was unequivocal in our condemnation over the atrocities on civilians being made in Ukraine and our call for accountability. And we will continue to do so and provide our support. I participated myself yesterday at the side event that was organized within this conference, providing once more our support in this direction. Your question to me was how to change the rules of consensus. The answer would be we need a consensus to change the rules of consensus. Unfortunately, there is no legal basis to exclude any participating state from the organization or to change the rules of conduct. But this doesn't mean that we do not have space to work and to push forward our OSCE agenda. There is a list of mechanisms that we can employ and that have been already employed, such as the Moscow mechanism, and we will try to put in use all these instruments in order to push our agenda forward, and parallelly to try to pursue dialogue in order to forge consensus on issues that are instrumental to the agenda of our organization.
Thank you. Secretary Schmid.
Maybe just to add on the consensus issue, I very much agree. Consensus is a strength of any organization because decisions taken by consensus are very strong decisions. But we cannot and should not allow consensus to be misused, and particularly when it's misused for the budget. It affects very negatively our own staff. But I just wanted to add, as I said in my introductory remarks, this organization is not paralyzed because we have been very much adapting to the situation. And one example is also the new completely donor-funded program we have been setting up for Ukraine. Together with the chair this year. These are 23 projects, very important projects, ranging from, as I mentioned earlier, humanitarian demining to support for women who have become victims of sexual violence. It's completely donor-funded, and the team is back in Ukraine. It would not have been possible out of the common budget. So this is a way of working that is very important because we cannot allow that if one participating state requests support, that this is being blocked.
Thank you. Lucas? Please wait for the microphone.
Doris Heimann, German news agency DPA. I have a question for Mr. Osmani. In the plenary session, you said that no political decisions had been reached and you did not adopt any documents. Could you confirm this, and could you elaborate on the reasons for not having reached?
This is for the current chair to.
Or maybe to Pan Professor. Okay. Sorry.
That's okay. You see, there is no resolution that was passed by the members of all the participating states, or better to say, the ministers who were representing them, because of the lack of a consensus. So the position of the overwhelming majority of the participating states as far as the main issue that the organization is facing right now, the Russian aggression against Ukraine, is well known. So it was pointless to look for a more general documents, general in its context, that would now refer to political reality. This would not contribute to the credibility of the organization as such. What we have managed to do was the statement of the Troika. And this, I'm proud that we managed to show our will and determination concerning not only the future of the organization, but above all the defense of its achievements in the last year, given all these obstacles that we were facing as an organization. That's the answer to your question, ma'am.
Thank you, Minister Rao. In the middle, gentleman in the green jacket, please. Lucas, you can get him a microphone. Thank you.
Polskie media na końcu. Polskie media na końcu. Polish media is at the end.
Okay. Thank you. Then, sir.
Thank you. Asadullah Sawi, Al Jazeera. The question is to Foreign Minister Osmani. In your final statement, again, you said no political decisions reached, no documents adopted. Does this mean that this meeting has failed? And where is all the talk of yesterday about holding Russia responsible for the crimes committed in Ukraine and holding Russia responsible for the reconstruction of Ukraine after the war?
Not at all. I don't think that this meeting is a failure. I don't think that the Polish chairmanship is a failure at all. This chairmanship and this meeting took place against the backdrop of an all-out war in Europe, an unprecedented circumstances since this organization has been established. And it was important when you hear at the converging messages of the participating states around the table today and yesterday is the emphasis on the need of this organization, particularly now. So we all agreed that this organization is important, is unique, is valuable. First, due to the fact that it is a forum of non-like-minded, but also because of the comprehensive approach to security that it provides. And the second assessment, that this organization is alive, beside all the assessment that it is paralyzed, it is in coma, it is dead. No, it's not. The organization showed resilience in a very difficult time, unprecedented difficult time for the organization. Helga mentioned the initiatives in Ukraine, but also through the work of the field missions, which work has been instrumental and very impactful for the people on the ground. And this is the ultimate message. This organization is about people. What we do for change, to have an impact on the ground for the people. And I think the organization has been doing that successfully. Against this unprecedented background we are working on. And therefore, we will continue to do so during our chairpersonship, trying to put focus on the field operations, trying to put focus on empowering vulnerable communities, and by that serving the people at the forefront.
Thank you, Minister Osmani. And at the front, again, Lucas.
Thank you. My name is Małgorzata Krakowska, representing TRT World here at the conference. So I have a question for Mr. Osmani. Hello. You said that under your leadership, you will assure that you'll make every opportunity useful to lay a path for a dialogue within the organization for the participating states. What do you mean exactly by every opportunity?
Look, OSCE is a forum for dialogue that brings together countries from 3 continents representing more than 1.3 billion people. And it is in our mandate. We are bound to communicate. As a chair in office, we are obliged to steer this organization during our chairmanship. But this is how I see our role as chair. Primarily, our role is to be the guardians of the commitments of this organization. The commitments are the fabric of the organization, the cohesive tissue of the organization. And our role, beside to administratively manage the organization during our chairmanship, primarily is to safeguard or to be the guardians of the commitments. Therefore, we will continue to communicate, but whether we will translate that communication into meaningful dialogue depends on how participating states will behave toward the commitments. So our attitude toward any participating states will depend only on the attitude of that given participating states to the commitments of the organization. I think this is our role. This is what the Polish chairmanship has been doing throughout the years, and this is what we are going to do during our chairpersonship.
Thank you very much, Minister Osmani. And to allow for the Polish-speaking media enough time also at this press conference, I will then conclude this part, the OSCE official portion part of this press conference, and give the floor and the microphone to Mr. Łukasz Jasina, who is the Polish Ministry for Foreign Affairs spokesperson.
And now time for Polish media's pierwsza...
Are you leaving?